Hello, everyone. Can everybody see my screen and hear me well? Let's wait one more minute and then we can start. Okay, let's start. So, hello everyone again. My name is Ata. I am AI champion at Kloya. I've been working with AI tools since 2022, I guess. I've actually kind of grow up with them since they emerged when I was at the university in college. I started with texting, chatting with LLMs, trying to write code directly with the chatbots, copying and pasting some code lines. But now we have many more advanced tools and concepts with usage of the AI in IDE or directly from a terminal. Today, I'm going to talk about the Kiro, the AWS's agentic AI IDE. So, every AI coding tool can write the code, but, the hard part is not the writing the code, it's building the right thing and keeping it right as the project grows. For example, we know that vibe coding is pretty popular right now, and every one of us are using this vibe coding, the AI tools, whatever you use. Who has shipped something that AI wrote already and then realized it solved the wrong problem? Since we write the code with AI, we have some walls that we hit while writing the code. For example, many of you probably have said something like, "That's not what I meant," because the meaning can drift between your head and what AI understands. And the other big issue is that when you're trying to code a large code base or trying to fix a bug in a large code base, or maybe your intent is very large, the context might be lost during the improvement or fixes, since the context window is pretty important to keep the intent safe and make sure the AI understand your intent. And the other thing is that most projects are being developed by more than one developer. You work as a team and you make some decisions during the implementation, whether it's about the designs or requirements or the task that you created during the development phases. And when you're using the AI tools, usually they do not have automatic documentation for you to keep track, and also for your team to keep track on what you are building right now. These are the main problems, in my opinion, while writing the code with AIs. So hopefully we have Kiro, which is AWS agentic IDE, where you can use it directly with in IDE or CLI or on the web. Build your code and you can choose your model, switch between models, Cloud, Sonnet, Opus, or any other tools. And you can sign in it with GitHub or Google or AWS Builder ID account. And it's enterprise ready, which is now HIPAA eligible. So the main loop of the Kiro that differs it from the other AI agentic IDE tools is that when you first give a brief chat text, let's say, and try to explain your idea, first it will create a requirements and save it as a document in the requirements.md in the project folder in a .kiro folder. And with your chat, with your intent, as far as it understands, it creates some user stories, which is the best practice in the sector currently, which is ears, easy approach to requirements syntax. As many of you know, or maybe you do not know, when trigger the system shall blah blah, and it forces a testable and unambiguous criteria. You will Kiro will propose the requirements and you will decide. The main thing in this approach is that you will in the loop all the time. You will edit and review the requirements that Kiro writes. And after that, it will create a design about your architecture, your data model, based on the requirements that you discussed earlier with the model. Then once you're done with the design, for example, the data model or the two frameworks you want to use, the language, the coding language, programming language that you want to use, it will generate some tasks, and then these tasks will be directly uh, matched with the requirements that you provided earlier, and then you will begin to uh, execute those tasks regardingly. So all of these requirements, design, and tasks document will be automatically saved in the .kiro folder within your project. So the Kiro has more than just these three documents. It has some thing called steering, which is your which is how you give your global or project based rules on the agent to make sure it follows during the implementation. The agent hooks, maybe you already heard of it. It will be triggered in the specific event, and then it will auto run something based on the uh, hook that you generated. Now it has new thing called powers. It is one-click bundles of MCP plus steering plus hooks, and it will be load on demand to avoid context limits. Some native MCP capabilities, autopilot capability, which makes it easier to do basic tasks. You will just give the description or intent you want, and it will you toggle on the autopilot, and it will do the rest. And the other one is sub-agent. The tasks might be divided into subtasks, and it will be given to assigned to some other sub-agents. Then the implementation will be done by different kind of agents. So how the Kiro is different? The normal typical AI assistant, you will text and chat with the chat box, and then it will generate code snippets or maybe doing the inline code changes. However, in the Kiro, we have, as I mentioned, the spec documents, the requirements, design, tasks, and implementation. And in the end, we will have the code that we really wanted. The memory in a typical AI assistant, there is an ephemeral chat context, but in the Kiro, the persistent file in your repo, which I emphasized previously, the typical AI assistant will not save your context into automatically into a project-based file. The requirements are maybe written by the also other AI agents, but it will not be in the human in the loop way like the Kiro does. We will have explicit ears acceptance criteria while using the Kiro. And over time, the typical AI assistant might drift from the intent, but Kiro will stay on the intent since it will have the spec all the time. And the automation is done in the Kiro by hooks, powers, and sub-agents. So in this webinar, I will demonstrate these capabilities. Yeah, I know that we have a short time, but we will create a URL shortener, and I will show you how Kiro helps us while developing such projects, just starting with the basic text, the message that we send to the Kiro. So now I'm switching to Kiro. So let me just write a very short, let's close this once. It's an empty project that I just opened. Uh, let's give a short prompt that says build a URL shortener. Users paste a long URL and get a short link. Visiting it will redirect and it will track the click count. As you can see, I've chosen the spec. If you want to just chat with the AI tool and not if you're not making a large project, you can also use the vibe part. But for now, I'm gonna demonstrate the spec-driven development. So let's send our first message. So first, it will ask us a question whether it's a feature, a new feature, or are we going to fix a bug in a current code base, or we're just gonna do as fast as we can and do directly into the tasks part. However, now we are doing spec-driven. I will select the build a feature. Now it asks me to how to start with, whether if I want to start by requirements or if I want to skip the requirement and directly start with the design part. I will select the requirements. Now it's starting to generate the spec files. First, it generates the config part. It saved my intent. The workflow type will be requirements first, and spec type will be the feature, as we selected from the chat. Now it's created the requirements file. Let's wait until it's finished. Now it's done and it's waiting for our input. So let's read a bit from the requirements document. It has an introduction. This document specifies the requirements for a URL shortener service. The system allows users to submit long URLs and receive shortened links. So that's great. The glossary will be automatically generated. And as you can see, as I mentioned, there is a ears style requirement definitions. For example, in the first requirement is creating the short URL. The user story is, as a user, I want to submit a long URL and receive a short link so that I can share a more manageable link. And it defined 5 acceptance criteria for this. It says when a user submits a long URL, the URL shortener shall validate that the long URL is a valid URL format. When a valid long URL is submitted, the URL shortener shall generate unique short URL identifier, and so on. The second requirement is redirect the short URL. As a user, I want to visit the short link and be redirected to the original. And the acceptance criteria are when users visits a short URL, the redirect service shall look up the corresponding long URL. If mapping exists, it should redirect. If not, it will exit with the 302 status code. Also some performance metrics. The track click count also is another requirement. As a user, I want to see how many times a short link has been visited so I can measure engagement. It has 4 acceptance criteria, and as you can see, it is always following the ears style when, the, then, when and then, or if and then. So in the fourth one, we have short URL uniqueness. As a system administrator, I want each short URL to be unique so that there are no collisions or conflicts. It has 4 acceptance criteria, and in the fourth one, it says that the URL shortener shall generate short URL identifiers that are between 6 and 10 characters in length. And let's say that we do not want between 6 and 10. I want it to be exactly 15 characters. Let's say the shortcodes must be 15 characters long. It says that it's going to update the requirement document to specify the shortcodes to must be exactly at 15 characters long. And let's generate the tech design from now on. Since I did not accept the first one, it deleted it automatically and rewrite it with the 15 character limit. As I said, it's rewriting the requirements document. While we're waiting the design document to be finished, oh, that was an error. We will look at it. But it changed, updated the requirements as it will be the shortcodes that are exactly 15 characters in length. So let's see the design document. Let's say continue. Since it always stays in the context, when I set the continue, it will restore from checkpoint and figured out that the design MD file is partially complete, but it has some issues. So since we already written the requirements MD file, it can generate design MD file regarding to requirements file. And that's what I meant by keeping in the context. The context lock is pretty powerful in the Kiro. Let's wait a bit for design file to be written and finished. By the way, while we are waiting this one, have you already tried to Kiro for development purposes or any other AI IDs or direct CLI tools for code development? If so, which tool are you using? Oh, that's great. You're trying Kiro. Yeah, every new tool starts with the experimenting phase. Exactly. That's also a good usage, yeah. So the Design file is finished. Let's check. Let's have a better visuals. So design document for URL shortener is ready. The URL shortener system is a service that generates compact, unique identifiers for long URLs and provides redirection services. The system consists of three primary components: URL shortening service, redirect service, and analytics service. And it generated a high-level architecture in a mermaid format, so we can visualize and see whether it matches our intent or not. In the current architecture, the user can post shortened URL or get short ID or get stats of the short ID. The gateway will redirect it regardingly. It has some component responsibilities for API gateway and URL shortener service or redirect service or analytics service. For example, we didn't mention this one, but since it has better logic in its mind, it has excluding the ambiguous characters like 0 and O, the lower capital L and upper capital I. And it's generated it as a layered architecture. We have the presentation layer, the business logic layer, and persistence layer. We have the data model as URL validator, short ID generator, URL repository, click counter, HTTP handlers, and data models, as I mentioned, the URL mapping interface, the character set for allowed character for your short UID generation, how errors will be handled, the error handling part, the message that will be sent, the error codes, the error response format, and also generate a property to whether we're sure that it will working correctly, so it has correctness properties, and they will match directly with the requirement as I mentioned. For example, the property one is URL validation correctness. It says for any string input, the URL validator shall correctly identify it as valid, meaning with proper scheme and domain, or invalid, meaning with descriptor error, and shall never accept malformed URLs or reject valid ones. And this property, it says that this property will validate the requirements 1.1 and 1.6. Let's see what 1.1 and 1.6 says. So 1.1 was when a user submits a long URL, the URL shortener shall validate that the long URL is a properly formatted URL. And 1.6 is that if a long URL is invalid or malformed, then the URL shortener shall return an error message describing the validation failure. As I mentioned earlier, it generates the design file on top of the requirements file. Thus, the intent and the context will not be lost, and it will generate the project in the first shot like the given criteria, like you wanted it to be. And the next phase, the tasks part, will be generated on top of requirements and design, so that it will match your intent by requirements MD file, and it will match how you want the system will work, taking the reference as design MD file. So I will accept this design file. So it says the design document is now complete. Would you like me to proceed to create a tasks MD file to break down the implementation into executable tasks? Let's say yes. By the way, for demo purposes, I'm using a free tier account, so that's why I'm using Cloud Sonnet 4.5. But in the paid account, paid subscriptions, there are Cloud Opus 4.8, and I think probably in a month it will have the new LLM model. You heard of it, right? Yesterday, a new model has published by Claude. Has anybody seen it? A very powerful and kind of dangerous tool, model, let's say. Yeah, you know the name of the model? I think it's named Fable. I don't know how to pronounce it. Maybe it's Latin word. I don't know. But it generated using the it has been generated using the Mythos model, which is not being published publicly since it is too much powerful and very good at finding vulnerabilities in a system and its components. Yes, Mythos. Actually, the published version's name is Fable or Fable, as I said, but it use Mythos. Yeah. So we have finished the requirements and design parts. Now it generated tasks part, and in the tasks MD file, you can see that it's divided the design and requirements into executables, tasks, and some subtasks. Like the we have task 2, and it has some other subtasks called 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3, which are which some of them are property tests and they are not marked as required initially, but you can select it and make this task required. But since we have a limited time, I will skip those tasks and just create the implementation, just do the implementation. So let's see the titles of the tasks, not going to detail. The first task is set up project structure and core types. The second one is implement URL validation logic. The third one is implement short code generation logic. Fourth part is I think it's a great feature of Kiro also. It has some checkpoints between some tasks so that it will look up the previous tasks and look up the code base and ensure that core logic tests will be they already passed or not. The fifth task is implement storage layer in with in-memory repository. Sixth one is implement click counting logic, implement URL shortener service, another checkpoint, implement redirect service, implement analytics service, implement HTTP handlers and API routes, another checkpoint, and final checkpoint. So we have some also task dependency graph, which says that the task one is matched with this dependency, etc., etc. Since some of the tasks might be dependent on other tasks, let's accept this and start with the first task. Also, there's another option that automatically run all the tasks, but for demonstration purposes, let's start with the first one, and it will open another chat box and start the task from that part. Why it does it like that, like why it didn't directly start the task one from this part, is that it isolates the tasks with a different kind of chats sessions so that the context window will not be bubbled up and exploded, so that we can execute our task without an interruption about context limitations. So we have .kiro folder and we have specs for URL shortener. So since we started the task, it has this dash and That means it is now in progress. Now it starts generating the setting up the project structure and its core types. I have one question. Yes. Have you tried any other competitors of Kiro? What is your opinion? Cursor or anything else? Yeah, I tried many other also competitors, but as I said, the I think Kiro is better for spec-driven development since it puts you in the loop all the time. And as I said, the context lock is pretty great in the Kiro. That's why I already had some Cursor subscription, but I declined it. I deleted my subscription to open Kiro subscription. So as I didn't select autopilot, it will ask me these run commands. The create, read, and write commands are not needed by human approval. You're welcome. It created a README file. Let's see. And a setup file. Let's accept this one. So it gave me the summary of the task one, and it says that it's completed. Let's see if it is checked as done in the tasks file. Yes, it says the completed. You can see the changes, but I think we cannot now. Yeah. You can see the requirements that it depends on 1.1, 1.2, 1.4, 2.1, and 2.4. We can check it also. Let's continue with the task 2. As you can see, when I click on the execute task, start task, it generated any other chat session, and it will execute it in this window. By the way, if you have any questions, please write on the chat. I'm checking it all the time. So we can expand what it is currently doing so that we understand its reasoning. Yeah, we have another question. Any additional steps required when we use Kiro with already existing code bases? No, there is no, like in vibe coding mode, I mean. No, you do not need to do anything else if you are working on an already existing code base. Since it's in the first message, as you said, as you saw, it asks that whether it's a feature or bug fix or any other thing. And when you click on it's a feature and said that it's a new feature, it will analyze the code base at first and generate the requirement tasks based on your code base or code base logic. Like it will match the design pattern that you already use, the programming language, the schemas you already created, the data models, etc., etc. Also, if you want to talk about the code base, like you're not going to develop anything else, your plan is not to implement any feature, bug fix, or anything like this. Just you have a question about the code base, you can click on the vibe coding mode and ask your question directly there. So you will not need a structured implementation plan for this one. Hope it answers clearly. Yes, the Kiro will maintains the context in a way like we did it earlier. So when it generates the requirements and design, it will not generate it from its own mind. However, it will generate it by your current by your project's current structure. Hence, the design will match your already existing code base. That's how it will maintain the context. So we implemented the URL validation logic. And I think also the chat box, the chat session box is pretty good to observe what is being done currently. And it's in a beautified way, it shows us. So as I'm doing demonstration right now, I'm not checking the edits that is being done in the code right now. However, in a normal case, you will need to be in loop all the time if you want it to be perfectly strong, and it will directly match with your intent to ensure it. So we had some subtasks in task 2, but we didn't mark them as required. So the URL validation logic is done. We can continue with task 3. As you can see, by the way, we uh, changed the character count of the short code while we are creating the requirements. And as you can see, it follows the thing that we changed earlier, since it will now create a function that generates 15 characters. Are you using any other AI tool than Kiro? If so, what are those? So as you can see, it says I'll execute 3.1 to implement the short ID generator. To let me first inspect the task state, and inspected the task, and it says that it is ready right now. And now I'll update its status to in progress and delegate to the spec task execution subagent. So not all these things are being done with the as from the same agent. One of them is updating the task MD file. One of them is executing the tasks so that it manages context window with its own logic. So you do not need to do anything else. It automatically runs the tests all the time after any implementation. It generated many tests and it passed all of them. So now it's creating a summary for me to tell me what's happened, since it's not very easy to keep track what is being done in a chat box. Of course, you can click on the view diff parts and understand what is being done, but the summary is much more easy to understand. Okay, let's accept and give me the summary. While it is generating the summary, I'll show you how it is related to those requirements that we defined earlier. It says that task 3.1 belongs to requirements 1.2, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4. Let's see what was the 1.2. It is when a valid long URL is submitted, the URL shortener shall generate a unique shortcode that is exactly 15 characters long. And it is this line. The 2.1 was the URL shortener shall generate shortcodes that contain only alphanumeric characters, which is covered by this part. The 2.2, the 2.3, 2.4 are also covered in the task. So it always follows the requirements that you and Kiro defined earlier. Why I said you and Kiro? Because When you write a short description about what you want to do, it will ask you some questions, and you will generate the requirements and design files together. So now we are in the checkpoint. No, unfortunately, the question was, are you planning to include vibe coding with an existing code-based demonstration in the session? No, unfortunately, because we are trying to show the spec-driven development, but the implementation follows the same structure. You will again will write a message into spec part of the chat, and you will do the same steps as I done earlier in this webinar. So since it's a checkpoint, there will be no implementation if there is no problem and all the tests passed. We have 3 test files. Yes, and all of them are passed. So we have nothing to do here. The checkpoint 4 is complete. So let's try a bit different thing since you already understand how the task execution is being done. Let's say I want to change something in the code, but we have 3 different files: the design file, the requirement file, and task file. And also we have already now a code base. When I want to change something, how will it affect to design requirement task to stay in the context? Let's try this one. For example, let's say we said it will be 15 characters, but let's say that we want something differently right now, and we want let's also use the vibe part so that we can understand how it will work in the already existing code base. So maybe it will also explain your question. I want the short code to be 20 characters long. It says that I see you're working on a task that is optimized for spec sessions. Since we already developed the whole code base using the spec files, it says that maybe it's better to continue as a spec driven for the best experience. Let's say yes. Now it starts by reading the requirements file. Now we start editing the requirements file so that when our friend or we work on this project later on, the context will stay the same. So let's see. It was 15 characters before and now it's 20. In the glossary, it was 15 and now it's 20. In the acceptance criteria also, they were 15 and now they are 20. So when I accept the change in the requirement, it will make these changes and make the updates necessary into design file. So now it made some edits on the design file. So I think that's the main difference between the other agentic AI tools and Kiro. That's why I choose to develop. If I want to develop something that is strong, that follows my intent all the time, and the result will match what I exactly wanted, I would use Kiro. So while it is editing the design file, then it will edit the tasks file. We can I can answer your questions if you have any. Anything Kiro related or AI related? As you can see, it changed all of the appearances of 15 characters or 10 characters also. The number of combinations changed also. While doing so, it helps us to stay in the context, stay on the origin intent all the time. So unfortunately, we are almost at the end of our time. The project might not be end, but you understand the idea. The Kiro helps us you to develop your ideas into structured way, and a question just to understand job profile related as an AI engineer. What does your job look like? So you are asking how is it to be AI engineer or AI champion? My job looks like I want to share my experiences with AI, the follow the latest updates, the latest innovations, and share it with others, with my team, with our customers, with other developers, with the community, and also gather what they know and learn from them. So as we share our experiences together, we can create a great community and share great know-how. I hope it answers. And now it start to editing the tasks file. So I think we do not need to wait for the rest, since it will just do the change in the tasks, and after that it will do the change on the code base. But making change on the code bases, it's not really important stuff, since all of the AI tools are doing so. But the core point here is that it updates all spec files. So you're welcome, honey. So thank you everyone for joining today. I hope I might show you some new stuff that you didn't earlier. Thank you for following with me, and have a great day. Bye.